Hello there, everyone. Back in San Diego, another Comic-Con prep video. Last year was the first time we did something like a beginner's guide, and people seem to like it. People have asked about it this year, so it seemed like it's going to be too much, repetition, but we'll see. I've definitely freshened up the guide, and hopefully it's useful to people. We do want to say a lot of the videos that we do, or really all the videos, we're always trying to figure out like scaffolding things for people that we know. We want to have people that are brand new, but we also hear from a lot of you that you watch as veterans because you just kind of enjoy getting in Comic-Con mode, and it's part of like celebrating the season. So we try to kind of shoot it in the middle. That said, this one is really going to target like, I'm new to Comic-Con. This is maybe my first Comic-Con, or maybe my first in a long time, and kind of trying to think of that type of person in mind with all of that. Before we get in too deep to things here, though, I did want to say if you're watching this in the future, and we saw that last year that a lot of people watched throughout the whole year, kind of in between Comic-Con 24 to 25, is if you are looking to get tickets at whatever time this is, the place to start is to go over to comiccon.org and go sign up for a member ID. I would follow along with them on their social, and then our friends at the unofficial San Diego Comic-Con blog. Those two spots are going to get you covered, get you set to go to Comic-Con, whether it's 26, 27, 28, whenever you're watching this, if tickets are still available at that time, because it is a process, and Comic-Con is kind of a year-round sport in some ways. I mean, there's definitely months off. There's a lot of prep and planning that go throughout the entire year, though. So, all right, so talking about Comic-Con and thinking about general philosophies up top, I think it's always great, like in our comments section, when people jump in to help each other. I also think, though, for us, we should be clear, like, kind of on how we approach these videos and how we just approach the convention itself. So one big thing is that there is no specific way to do things. Like, we are never going to tell you that something is right or wrong. It's just the way we do things and the way we prefer. Now, we have been going to San Diego Comic-Con since 2005, so we've had a lot of experience. We even went to the special edition one when we had that one come back in November or whatever it was. So we have a lot of experience with Comic-Con. But that said, we would never say that like any of our ideas are like, this is the definitive way to do it, because it's all about your own goals, your own interests, your own pacing, and all of that. But that's kind of where we'll come from. It is also important to understand that this event is so much work. Like, if you are just kind of checking in now as we're recording this in July and you haven't done too much prep, we see that in our Facebook group that we run oftentimes for attendees, is people kind of tuning in and like, wait, what's going on now? And it's just something to understand. It doesn't mean that you can't have a fantastic time just rolling in on preview night or Thursday of the con and still just going with the flow. But there are a lot of things that get missed. So like as we're recording this, many activations or parties that had kind of pre-sale things or had online reservations, those have kind of come and gone. There's still a lot, though, and particularly in 2025, there are a lot of first come, first serve activations. I think the most we've seen since the era of kind of online reservations began. But try, if you can, to enjoy the prep. I know we're really big on that. We love coming down here and like seeing the wraps go up. We love seeing what announcements are coming, press releases, all of that, because Comic-Con is so challenging. Like, if you don't enjoy the prep season, it just goes by so fast once it all gets there. Enjoy the mystery. I know that's a big thing to us. It's really why I fell in love with Comic-Con in the first place, was like the surprises. And it is to this day. Every year there are things that surprise me about the show. And I don't mean just in the big panel room or like a Marvel drone show over Petco. Of course, those are incredible and amazing surprises that I love. But there's all sorts of just things you stumble upon on the floor, different artwork, different vendors, different toys, exclusives, people signing. All of these things are so exciting. So if you weren't able to do much prep, or you just don't like to prep, know that I think, for me at least, the mystery is as much fun as anything else about the con. So I wouldn't even say that that's necessarily a bad thing if you just want to go in that way. Also, it'll really encourage you to know how to pace yourself. So many people talk about like sleep is for the weak, and I don't sleep at Comic-Con, and that is wonderful if you are that person and that works for you. But I just think everybody is different, and I've never been that person. I wasn't that person when I was 15. I'd go to Rock and Bowl and it'd be like overnight type thing to from midnight to 8 a.m. and I hated it. I've never been that person that has really loved going without sleep. Now, there's a lot of the season, particularly when we're covering all sorts of Halloween stuff, over 100 things every Halloween season, that I get very little sleep. But that said, I know I need that. I know I need breaks. I have really bad feet with like surgeries, multiple pins and rods and all these things. So I just know there's things I know that I need. And I've learned that over the years. But if this is your first convention or your first San Diego Comic-Con, it may take a little bit to see what you need there. But I feel like, don't feel bad if you take a lot of breaks, if you sleep in, if you miss the opening of the floor. I mean, just go with the pace that you enjoy. Make sure at the end of the con that you feel good. I've always said, to me, Comic Con is too important to feel tired on Sunday. Not that we don't all feel tired on Sunday to some extent, but I don't want to be like totally fried on Sunday and like, oh, I'm glad the con's over. We come across a lot of people every year that on Saturday are like, yeah, I'm ready for the show to be over. Sunday morning, ready for the show. I'm going to skip the last half of Sunday. I don't know. To me, it's just this floor is so much fun. The panel rooms, the offsites. I just want to enjoy it all. So I encourage you to really pace yourself, take the breaks that you need to, and know that there isn't any one set way that you should do Comic Con. And then know that you can only do a slice of this convention. It is one of the things that's so incredible. We make it a point for every show that we cover, and we cover somewhere between 40 and 55 conventions a year. Every show we cover, no matter how big or how small, we walk every row because we want to try to make sure to see every exhibitor. Now, it's a lot tougher at a show like San Diego Comic-Con or Anime Expo where there's so many booths. But that said, we still go down every row and we try to take in as much as we can. But that being said, we know even doing that, we're not going to take in even 1% of this convention. When you add the activations, the panels, the gaming, again, all the different floors, the artist alley, there's just so much. And so you kind of have to like rejoice in that a little bit and just be like, I know I'm not going to see everything, but I'm going to see as much as I can. And hopefully I'm going to see a lot of really cool things wherever I spend the bulk of my time. I still contend that in this modern era of Comic-Con, somebody could come down with no badge and just do activations and be here, you know, all Wednesday through Friday, and I think they could leave having a really great time. I know I value the floor too much to ever want to do that, but I definitely can see having fun with that because there's so much there. Now, some general tips. Information moves very fast at Comic-Con. And we have lived in this era, and even though a lot has changed in how people value Twitter/X these days, it still is the place to go for the most information. It is the most quick, efficient way to get information. I know it's for us the easiest way to get information out to the people that we have. I know for the ublog, it is the same thing. It's just the way that information flows most quickly. It's the way, and again, it sucks that there's all these ads and other things about that app. But you know, when we post stuff on Instagram, like we'll use our stories, it's just the way the algorithm works. It's tough for people to actually come by it and use it in real time. So highly suggest using X Twitter. You can download the app for a week and then delete it if you want or whatever. But just if you want to try to get that info. Now, again, going at your own pace, you may say, I don't really care about all that info. I don't care about what swag. I don't care how long lines are at different things. I don't need crowdsourced information, and that's fine too. But for those of you, and I'm imagining a lot of people that are going to watch this video, you are interested enough in preparing for this show that you chose to watch a video about it. And then in that case, you probably do want info, which is the same way I was back before we even started Parks and Cons back in like 2009, when I was just like, hey, why are people being able to go to parties? Why are people being able to go to offsite things? Like, how did they find out? And I found, oh, all that information was flying on, at the time, Twitter, now X. The other thing about that is just searching that hashtag can be so helpful. Hashtag SDCC, search latest. I used that a lot last year. I've used it for even this year, looking at things that go up as we're kind of getting in the, or as we're in the prep season. That can still be really helpful. I feel like every year, 1 or 2 days are formed for us by things we find in the hashtag. Is we see people sharing information about different booths or giveaways or wait lengths, at activations or different panel rooms, and it's the thing that bends us. I'm very much an opportunist. I think taking advantage of opportunities is one of my favorite things about Comic-Con. So although we put together a very generalized plan that has a lot of specificity to it, despite it being general, we also are constantly pivoting because just love looking for different opportunities out there. Now, on the topic of exclusives, a lot of people have questions about exclusives. The first thing I'll say about exclusives is some things are very exclusive, but a lot of things are not. A lot of the biggest things end up going for sale online. A lot of them end up being for sale at the end of the con on Sunday with no line. It doesn't mean everything is. There are some things that are very tough to get, but over the years, it's become much easier to pick up exclusives at Comic-Con than it ever was before. You know, back in 2012, if you missed something, a Hasbro exclusive, it just kind of was like, well, that's it. And that's why a lot of those go for such high prices these days, because it was such a small window. These days, there's online sales, and then there's a lot of times them sitting at the booths. I just posted on our X account a couple days ago of like pictures of like 4 different booths that are really competitive early in the con. And on Sunday, all four of them had most of their items still remaining there. So if you don't get something early in the con because the wait's too long or you didn't win it through the portal, might be worth looping back at the end of the con if you have that access to go on Sunday. Also, remember, you can always track these things down online. It's very rare that you can't. I mean, if it's a a one of one that's happened in Artist Alley, that's a different story. But a lot of these things, if it's a Mattel, I want to get that Jaws exclusive this year. I'm going to try very hard to get that Jaws exclusive. If I can't get that Jaws exclusive, if we don't have time, if it just doesn't match up, I'm just going to try and track it down in the next 6 months. I'm going to do a search on eBay, keep an eye on prices. Usually things drop in December. A lot of times collectibles drop in December because collectors are buying for others rather than themselves. So you'll find the whole collectible market usually takes a dive in that Thanksgiving through Christmas. And then Christmas collectors get eBay gift cards and they jump back on eBay and start buying stuff. But that would be the perfect time for me to go look for that Jaws exclusive if I can't track it down there. Now, the portal this year, it closes on July 17th. So as we're recording this, that's coming up pretty quick here. We put in all of our entries for it always like the day before it closes. We wait as far as we can, for the most part, to kind of see what all goes in there. And then we make our allocations from there. Now, the allocations is each day you're given a number of those points or tokens to use towards the things you want. I don't think there's any one size fits all like answer to how to distribute them, but I will tell you for our history, we've had the most success when we've gone all in on a day for either one of us, and also when we've gone all in and targeted a non-optimal time. And what I mean by that is, like, we've had pretty good success with the Funko booth, but a lot of that I think has come because we're never choosing like the first slot. We're not even choosing the second slot a lot of times. We'll go deeper in the day. Now, obviously the trade-off is a lot of times by the time we get there, some of the more sought after things are sold out. So it's kind of a balance. You might say, well, I'm only care about the most rare items, so I just want to get in there and open. Fine. If you just want to get in the booth, though, by targeting later in the day, it seems that there's less people targeting it. That seems to be what happens there. Either way, though, pick what fits best for you. If you're going for signings, you have to realize those are usually some of the most sought after because the collectors are going after the booths. Everyone's going after signings. I think that's the difference. Is there's a subcategory of attendees at Comic-Con that are collectors. But I think the average person, even if they love Jaws, to go back to that, are not necessarily jumping into the Mattel Lotto or Portal unless they really are collectors as well. I don't think a lot of people think of it that way, but if they see a signing for someone, they're like, okay, I get to meet a celebrity, I can get it locked in, I'll probably get a free poster print, and that's a reason to target that. So keep that in mind as well, is it doesn't mean that you shouldn't go for those signings in portals, and we have, and we've won some of them over the years, but I do think it's a more challenging road to go than to get a slot at Moose Toys or to get a slot at UCC or Mattel or whatever it might be there. Make sure to read the Comic-Con International FAQ for exclusives and for the portal and for everything, to be honest. Like, always there, and also really big on checking with staff when you're at the floor. When you're on the floor, when you're getting ready to line up. All of those things I think are really important. Now, since we're talking about the portal, let's talk a little bit more about the signings. So there are those signings that are part of the portal. Those are normally things that are like these larger entities that Hollywood is bringing in, or it might be Todd McFarlane bringing himself in. But that's kind of how those signings work, is they're kind of sponsored in a way, whether it's by that individual or their larger company that's behind them. But there's also signings that are just like, I'm going to pay $80 and get an autograph, or more of $80, probably $120, and get Ashley Eckstein. I want Ahsoka's autograph. In that case, I'm going to go to a booth like $7 a pop. I think at this point, actually, in the last couple of years of Comic-Con, they've been like the booth bringing celebrities in for kind of that pay-to-play model of charging. Now, very important, if you've attended other cons but never attended San Diego Comic-Con, we see people all the time confused by this, and a lot of times old-time Comic-Con attendees are a little like rough with these attendees because they'll jump in and they'll be like, I haven't seen anybody put the signing list out. When are people autographing? And they're like, that's not how this con works. And it's like, that is true. It isn't how this con works. But for Comic-Con only attendees to know, a lot of times they don't realize that every other con, that is how it works. If we want to get a signature at LA Comic-Con this year, we know Paul Bettany's going to be there. We could go buy his autograph right now. When we get there, there'll be a big autograph hall with signage. We'll go get in line for Paul Bettany. That isn't how it works here. Now, there is the sales pavilion. That's another place where you can buy autographs. But usually the talent that's up there is a little bit older school talent. It's not normal. It's going to be someone like Herb Jefferson, like original Battlestar Galactica type of an actor. It's not as likely to be someone like Paul Bettany showing up there from Marvel to do a Vision signing. So do keep that in mind. That is a difference of Comic Con. It also has to kind of the excitement and what's so unique about the con. Comic Con's really unique in that they sell out their tickets before they announce anything. Every year, tickets sell out. Nobody knows who's going to be there, what panels, what signings. We just all kind of jump in because we know Comic Con's always a great time. At least those of us that go a bunch, I think it's a great time. And so we never necessarily know, though, what we are going to have those opportunities. But again, it doesn't mean you can't maybe get, I don't know, Gen V is going to be there this year. Maybe I'm going to get a signing there via a different means, but it's probably not going to be anywhere where I'm going to be buying tickets to it like at a traditional con. There's also not a photo op area. Like that's such a huge thing at cons these years to have rooms filled with photographers doing photo ops. You go to Star Wars Celebration, I feel like that's half the income that the con brings in is from just those. Not a thing at San Diego Comic-Con. It's just not part of the con here. Will it be someday? I don't know, but it's not now. And so again, if you've only been to other cons, just something to know about the differences here at Comic-Con for good or bad. There's also ample opportunities for autographs in Artist Alley, and that's a different type of signing, of course. That's not necessarily the celeb signings that we get a lot of questions, but I know for us, one of the most fun things about Comic-Con is seeing some comic creators that we don't see at other conventions locally, and then we're able to see them there because they've flown out. Like when Tom Taylor came out from, I believe it was Australia at the time that he was living, it's like, wow, we don't see him at other conventions. So that was like a big deal for us. All right, now let's pivot and talk a little bit about swag and freebies. And Comic-Con is known historically as one of the cons where that's most available. Over the years, we've seen that really pick up at D23. And honestly, this year at Anime Expo, just a few weeks ago, it was the most swag, the most physical freebies we've seen there ever. And I'm really curious to see what we see at San Diego, if that maintains here, or if that's just because it was anime and there's so much money going into anime right now. I kind of think that's the case. But either way, swag, you can find it. Our friends at the Unofficial Blog will post any swag they know that booths are giving out. But I always find the best swag is usually secret. And what I mean by that is it's stuff that they just have there and they start giving out on preview night. And so again, this is where we crowdsource answers. And for us, it's about visiting booths to try to find out what's going on. It's paying attention. If somebody has a cool bag, ask them where they got that cool bag and see if you can find out more details. And again, searching X or Twitter, whatever we want to call it, and looking at the hashtag and seeing what's being shared there. I know for us, we will share things when we do our run on the floor, like in the mornings or on preview night. We will share whatever we find, whether it's activations or on the floor of telling you what freebies are out there. But a few years ago, you know, a lot of the various swag kind of shifted to virtual things, to photo ops, and I think that'll still be a big part of Comic-Con for many years to come and probably never leave it. But I also think maybe we'll see a little bit more swag return in the years ahead. I'm just not sure if it's this one for sure. We like to zigzag around on preview night. If you have preview night, we encourage you to do the same. We did a whole separate floor guide video. It's just fun to kind of try to cover as much floor as you can to see as many things that are out there. But either way, it's just trying to gain information to see what things are available on the floor. Now, talking panels. Panels have been just recently announced here. If you're watching in the future, it's important to know panels get announced 2 weeks before the convention starts. So that means people wait very late. Again, oftentimes we'll find people on social or in our YouTube channel asking us like, why haven't they announced the panel schedule yet? It's a month away. And it's like, they always do it 2 weeks before. It's just the way that scheduling works at Comic-Con. And you know, there's usually going to be a lot of great panels, but you also know you're going to wait for that. Make sure if you are looking at doing panels to always look at the entirety of the room. Comic-Con International does not clear rooms. And what that means is somebody can line up the day before, you know, get their wristband, get into Hall H and get there at whatever, 9 a.m. and just stay there till 9 p.m. or whenever the panels end. And so because they don't clear rooms, you always have to look at the entirety of the schedule for the room. It really never matters about one single room. It's about the entirety. So like this year, it's interesting. George Lucas is coming on Sunday as part of a promotion for his new museum. He's with Guillermo del Toro, Doug Chang, Queen Latifah. That sounds like that's going to be really busy. I don't know if it's going to be really busy. I feel like it's going to be really busy, but it's a guess. But it's also the only panel. But the thing about it is there's not really big panels in the other rooms. There's no Ballroom 20 that day. So my fear is everybody that's there that has any thought about George Lucas is going to go to that line. But that could be me just not reading the room correctly. And so again, it's why we're going to be monitoring social media. How many people are getting wristbands for Hall H on Saturday night? How busy is that? Are people lining up early? That's how we're going to judge how busy that Hall H panel is going to be. Now, conversely, on Saturday, you have Demon Slayer there late in the day. I'm not sure that Comic-Con fans know how big anime is. I mean, a lot do, of course, but we find a lot of times anime is underestimated, and it is so big in America at this point. Like, it is massive. And so when we look at Saturday and we look at things like Peacemaker and Star Trek in Hall H, but how much of that room is going to be filled up by Demon Slayer fans that are there first thing in the morning or just going to stay through? I'm not really sure. I think it's going to be interesting to see that as a trend in the years to come of how anime fans approach Comic-Con. I think we're going to see more and more anime at Comic-Con, but to see how those fans approach it, and are they going to be like Marvel fans and going to be waiting overnight, or, Star Wars fans and waiting overnight? Only time can tell. But again, as you look at the schedule, it doesn't matter if it's 6A, if it's room 10, if it's Indigo, if it's Hall H, they're not going to clear the room. And there is going to be a need to be there at some point to decide how you get in there. Now, if you're looking at a panel, it's like, I want to see Scott Snyder. He's a great comic writer. I want to see him. The two panels before are, I don't know, wrestling. There may be some turnover there. There's no big creators after Scott Snyder. There's no other big panels after him. Maybe I can gamble there and just sit out those first two panels. And as those get there 20 minutes before, as they exit, then I'm going to take their seats in there. I do suggest checking out our friends at the Unofficial Blog. Again, they do 2 shows that break down the schedule, and they go every year and look at these bigger rooms and talk about what they think. And again, so much of it's philosophy and history. They have hundreds of, combined hours in panel rooms that they can share of, like, okay, this is how we approach, this is how we would approach Indigo on Friday, or whatever it might be. Now, as we move to offsites, activations around the convention center, most all of them are going to be okay with no badges. So that's usually a very common question for beginners. Most of them are not going to require a badge. Occasionally, we've seen offsites require it, very, very seldom. We've also seen a few give priority for badge holders. Again, very seldom. So most part, if you don't have a badge on a day, you could probably just go to these different offsites and activations. Do know activations generally are very slow moving. They're usually low throughput. If we think of, like, there's 100 people sometimes only going through an attraction in an hour, and you see a line of 1,000, you can do the math there. Some of these can take a real long time to get through. So what I would make sure is, like, again, trying to crowdsource it online as you're looking at activations, is how busy are these things? How likely is it that people are lining up the night before or early morning for it, and kind of judging it based on those things. For example, FX, this is right where we're recording by FX. Last year, a lot of people waited a long time to get into the kind of FX exhibition, the compound there, and then they got inside and had a long wait for the bear. And that was like a wait on top of a wait. And that does happen as well sometimes. If we talk about the interactive zone over at Petco, there's a line to get into the zone that there's the last few years for bag check. That's been a wait, and then we get inside, and now there's a wait for different activations. So again, I think crowdsourcing is always, to me, the most helpful thing when it comes to Comic-Con offsite activations. But either way, they're fun. They're really fun to see these physical manifestations of things we love, to go through a bounce house related to Rick from Rick and Morty or whatever is, it's really fun to see. It's such a playful time what these activations do. So highly suggest checking them out. Also, remember that there's a lot of fun activation type things. They're just like street teams, like Blue Beetle. They're out there promoting Blue Beetle, and they're giving out Reese's peanut butter cups. It's not a massive thing. It's not a huge, it's not activation of the year territory or anything like that, but it is kind of fun. Or sometimes handing out t-shirts. And I just like Wandering Fifth. Like, I love if we can do it, and a lot of times we're too busy to do it, but if we can take a half-hour a day just Wandering Fifth, I think that's a ton of fun, and can be really neat to see what you have, because those activations are kind of rolling out at different times. And so there's a lot of different levels. It's, you have that immersive storytelling that something like Interview with a Vampire has done. And then you have things like Reese's peanut butter cups, and so the memories are going to vary, but they all can be fun in their own ways. But also remember that with these offsite activations, if you're coming from the convention center, they all come with that time cost. So, like, let's say if we're coming over here to FX, there's the walk over, there's the time invested in line, there's the time of the activity. We may very well be doing 4 hours of our convention day and coming over. So those are things really important to remember as you are looking. Time, and we talk about in all of our videos, time is currency, and that's really, really important. So again, social can be the most help in kind of keeping things a good handle on that. So as we kind of round out here, as the biggest advice is just enjoy yourself. Have a really good time at the convention. Try to, if you want to go left, that's your idea, is to do this thing and you can't do it, so you have to go right. Enjoy going right. I mean, I know in our early years, there was a few times we'd miss out on something and be like, ah, dang. But a lot of times we'd find we're like, oh, wait, because we missed out on that, we got to do this and this. So really try to lean into the enjoyment. If you're going to Comic-Con, whether it's 25, 26, or whenever you're watching this video, you probably put a lot of work into getting here. And so we really do hope that you're able to enjoy it and take it all in and soak it in and just have a fantastic time, whether you're there for one day or the whole week. So with that said, we have a lot more Comic-Con content over on our podcast channel. Wherever you find podcasts, look up Parks and Cons. We're nearing 1,000 episodes as we're recording this, a lot of them about Comic-Con. During the pandemic, I just went back and listened to old Comic-Con episodes. I never listened to our old episodes, but I did it in that season because it was like, we don't have any con. I want to get a little bit Comic-Con. We actually met somebody the other day on the outside here that told us the same thing, that they did that during that time as well. So that's an option. Lots of videos on our channel. We've got playlists. Take it all in if you just want to get a little bit of vicarious fun with San Diego Comic-Con. But that's it. We are wrapping up this one. And until next time, we'll see you in line somewhere.